Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Hit King. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024, and we are starting with Pete Rose. Died yesterday at 83 years old, and it has spawned a renewed debate about his life, his legacy, his ineligibility for the Hall of Fame, something that is talked about within the commissioner's office more often than you'd believe, at owners' meetings, at front offices, during games. Spent 16 years watching every home game with Tony Perez. Got a chance to spend some time with Pete Rose. I want to start. Boy, we could have started with Dolphins. We could have started with Dikembe Mutombo. We could have started with the fact that Major League Baseball playoffs start today. We are starting with Pete Rose. Pete Rose died at 83 yesterday, and everyone is talking only about the Hall of Fame. I want to talk about Pete Rose, the player, and mourn Pete Rose, the player, and the type of player that doesn't exist anymore. It was channeled a bit through Ichiro, who is the other greatest hitter I ever saw. Pete Rose ended his career. He played for over 2 decades, an MVP winner, a World Series MVP winner, an All-Star 17 times, over 4,200 hits, hit streaks, played different positions. Pete Rose embodied what we all wanted to be as baseball players and what we all wanted to have on our team as baseball players. The conversations I had with Pete Rose were about baseball, about not the love of the game, which he loved, but about what it is to be a successful baseball player. The image of him running over the catcher in an all-star game, the image of him diving headfirst in the air into a base, helmet falling off. A switch hitter who understood that he could get a hit almost at will. Pete Rose, who would have been lauded for his entire life as one of the almost Mount Rushmore, maybe Mount Rushmore players in the history of the game that he loved, who doesn't look like an athlete, and he threw it all away. There is discussion today. Was he a good guy or a bad guy? There's a million baseball players who were amazing, who weren't people you'd want to have a beer with. There are scores of baseball players who just aren't very good, who you'd love to hang out with. Not a criteria. Don't care. When you're putting a team together, hey, I like you. No. Give me a full team of Pete Roses, and I will win a World Series at least 6 times a decade. The thing about betting and the irony of the discussion on a network, in a company where DraftKings is a sponsor. We are on the DraftKings network right now. People are conflating the issue. Legalized sports betting. That is what you do on DraftKings. That is what we do with picks of the day. What Pete Rose did, A, was illegal, and B, those of you watching on the network, it is not inconsistent for me to say this, talk it, or think it. You are not a professional baseball player. You may be good in your beer league, even in your penal league. What Pete Rose did when betting on baseball was the number one violation when he did it, and it's the number one violation now. Lying about the injury reports, not number one. Not knowing the rules, cheating on the rules, making up different things that happen during the course of a game or in the offseason, service time manipulation, all the things that we do that are violations of the rules. Yes, they are. But there's one rule that stands above all of them and always has. I don't want to have anyone believe that I think criminal activity, domestic violence, abuse, those things, they should be above gambling. But in the world of sports, in the world of integrity, where integrity matters, gambling. Then gambling on your sport. Then gambling on your team. Pete Rose denied it. When Pete Rose was put on the permanently ineligible list by Bart Giamatti, and in a twist of fate, Commissioner Bart Giamatti died within a week, Bud Selig took over and was never going to go against Bart Giamatti, said those words himself to me. I will not change the status of Pete Rose. When Rob Manfred was running for commissioner, the subject of Pete Rose came up. It came up in the process of being elected to be commissioner. And it was made very clear that there was not going to be a change in the status of Pete Rose. I had a suggestion for Rob, and his inner circle had this conversation. What an opportunity for you to remove him from the ineligible list, make him eligible either by the writers or because it's past 10 years since retirement. You can have it by the committee, the Veterans Committee, now called the New Era Committee. There's a bunch of different committees who let in managers or former players, executives, umpires into the Hall of Fame. Let's take it out of your hands, Commissioner-elect, and let's give the people what they want. And the answer always was given to me. He has done everything, Pete Rose, everything to make it easy for us to never remove him from the list. Everything from lying about gambling to then acknowledging it in a memoir, to not showing any remorse, to not representing baseball the way the octogenarians, the traditionalists, and the people wanted baseball to be represented. The last time I saw Pete Rose was at an autograph signing in a mall in Vegas. And I remember talking to him. I remember this so specifically. He was sitting there. There was no line. It was his time. I only saw him there because there was a sign out front that said Pete Rose, the Hit King, 10 to 12 a.m. p.m. So I walked in, reminded him who I was because it was out of context. And I remember the first thing that he said, you're around Pete Rose. You're around baseball royalty. Can you effing believe I'm sitting here? I just remember it. And it was said with irony. It was said with contempt. It was said with remorse, with sadness, with acknowledgement of what was real in his life. He lived the last decades of his life in a bed that he made, trying to unmake it. But every time he tried to unmake it, he made a different bed that ended up having the same crusty sheets. And today you're going to hear stories. People are going to lead with it on their shows. Maybe they won't. People are going to talk about it. There'll be articles and obituaries. And I hope that people can split their brains, wrap their arms around that. You'd have to find a player to get 200 hits for over 21 years. to approach Pete Rose's career hits. Think about that. This year, Bobby Witt and Luis Arias had over 200 hits. Two guys in the whole league. Pete Rose, in order to catch him, tried doing that for 21 straight years. And then you got to come back to spring training year 22 and get a bunch of hits to beat his record. It'll never be broken. There are lists of people that newspapers have done obituaries for while they're alive. There are lists of people that organizations have statements ready for the eventual death of someone meaningful to that organization, pre-written. There are organizations like CBS. We'd sit in the newsroom. Hey, let's get the clip package ready. Everyone's got the package ready for Jimmy Carter. Pete Rose's package, the debate, how much do you focus on the team? How much do you focus on the play? How much do you focus on the gambling? On Nothing Personal, we talk about it as an obit moment. When you do something in your life that you know will be part of your obituary, part of your legacy. Pete Rose had so many of them that people had to figure out what order to list. MLB was prepared for a statement. They knew exactly what they were going to do when Pete Rose died. They released a statement that said the following. Major League Baseball extends its deepest condolences to Pete Rose's family, his friends across the game, and the fans of his hometown of Cincinnati, Philly, Montreal, and beyond, who admired his greatness, grit, and determination on the field of play. May he rest in peace. The key to that statement is only 5 words. And that is the statement that should tell you everything you need to know about whether he'll be removed from the permanent eligibility list. He will not. Whether he will be posthumously elected or inducted into the Hall of Fame, which he will not. On the field of play. Purposeful choice of words by baseball. Pete Rose has passed away at 83. His legacy and the debate surrounding his legacy has not died. What a day of baseball yesterday. I hope that all of you watched Game 161. Not many people watch Game 161. It's sort of exciting to know that the playoffs are coming or it's the end of the season. As a president of a team that was out of it, Game 161 meant, hell yeah, one more day. Game 161's come on a Saturday. You know that Sunday's coming. Time to start again. Spring training's in a couple months. We can do it. We'll be back next year. For the Mets and Braves, their Game 161 will become the single most memorable Game 161 in the history of baseball. Total recency bias. But man, this one feels right, doesn't it? The Mets prevailed in Game 1 and screwed our pick of the day. The Mets prevailed after a 12-run, 1.5 inning stretch of the game where the Mets had a 6th-run 8th. Not as good as an 8-run 8th, but pretty good. No shutdown inning. The Braves scored 4 in the bottom of the 8th, and then Lindor, back and all, hit a 2-run home run in the top of the 9th, and somehow the Mets won and clinched a playoff spot, which set up the embarrassment of Game 2. You remember, if you followed me at David P. Samson on Twitter or you listened to the show, there was zero incentive for the Mets, if they were to win Game 1, to win Game 2. As a matter of fact, it was the opposite. They wanted to lose Game 2. A lot of interesting talk. Hey, maybe they want to crush the Braves' dreams. As a steward of a team that wanted to crush the dreams of other teams and enjoyed crushing the dreams of other teams, we would never do that at the expense of our team. Crushing the Braves would mean the Mets would have flown to San Diego last night and opened a 3-game stretch where you got to win 2 out of 3 in San Diego in order to advance to play the Dodgers. The Mets knew that they didn't want to have to play the Padres. They would rather go back to Milwaukee. Do not pay attention to stats. This is where analytics and stats are misleading. Yes, it looks as though the Mets had a great time with the Padres this season, maybe winning 5 out of 7. But you have to know deeper. No Tatis. Machado was terrible. The 5-2 is a fugazi. The Mets wanted no part of today's Padres. So they go to game 2. The Mets lose 3-0. The Padres and the Mets celebrate with champagne in their locker room as the traveling secretaries arrange for the planes to fly to Milwaukee and San Diego, respectively, New York, Atlanta. MLB gets into the postseason, which starts today at 2:30, and gets to separate itself from the nightmare that was yesterday for baseball. And make no mistake, it was a nightmare. Shout out to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think it's the first time in how long, Coca? 7 years? First time since 2007. So that's 17 years that neither team from last year's World Series made the playoffs. Diamondbacks and Rangers are out. It is a compelling situation. We're going to go over each of the series. I can't wait to do that. But I wanted to finish the regular season off by saying the New York Mets, who started 0-5, total panic. The teams where there's ups and there's downs, none of it matters. Ohtani's regular season doesn't matter. The fact that a team snuck into the playoffs at game 161 or 162, none of that matters. The playoffs in baseball are the great equalizer. It is one of the things that we've tried within front offices, within owners' meetings, so many meetings about this. How can we make the regular season better correlated to the playoffs? How can we reward the best teams of the regular season so they aren't subject to first round upsets because they've been sitting around? What is the best way to do it? Over 24 years, there have been 0 suggestions that have carried the day because different baseball people have different views about wanting days off, wanting to get rest and get healthy, wanting to go straight through, wanting to play games that matter toward the end of the season, which would say, don't run away with your division, versus please run away with your division so you can withstand any sort of September swoon and still have a chance in October. Different possibilities about shortening the season. So many angles to discuss with playoffs. And the reason why there's never been a consensus is that the owners have said, we're not willing to give up any revenue from 162 games. The GMs have said, we need time during the course of a season to properly evaluate who we are, to make decisions at a deadline. It was a big deal when they got rid of the August deadline. It was not favored by any baseball people because they wanted the extra month to evaluate their team. There's no way to mix the different views, and there was no way to ever gain 23 votes on a particular change that could be made. So the example, remember the talk of choosing your opponent, rewarding a division winner with the choice. You want to play extra games and you want to play an extra round, play an extra round. You don't have to take the bye. You can waive the bye. None of them passed because there's too much risk. Can you imagine choosing to waive your bye in order to keep playing, to keep on a rhythm, and then losing in the first round? Can you imagine choosing your opponent and then losing to your chosen opponent? Playoffs start today at 2:30 Eastern with an amazing, amazing series. Let's talk about this year's wild card round. As a reminder, you've got 4 series, 3 games and one team has to win 2 out of 3, but there's no travel. So if you've got home field advantage, you get all 3 games. There is no sport. Side note, Coca, a little funny thing. When that rule came out, where the wild card hosts, like if you win the division with the worst division record, meaning Houston and Milwaukee this year, you still have to play in the wild card round. You don't get a bye, but you get to host all 3 games. And the GMs would say, yeah, but that's not such a huge advantage. So then the answer was, all right, then be one of the top 2 records. And then the small market teams and low revenue teams would say, it is very unlikely we're going to be able to compete with the Phillies and the Los Angeleses and the New Yorks of the world. Once in a while, we can get there, like Cleveland did this year. But for the most part, we're going to be fighting for our playoff lives. It's so interesting to me that we want to sell to you, the fan, hey, this is really major incentives for teams and front offices and players to finish with the top 2 records in order to not play these wild card rounds where anything can happen in a 2 out of 3 series. Let's do some wait to sees, Coca. Can we do that? I think we can. We have so many to cover because the season's over. So we did a bunch of wait to sees before the season started. But let's do the playoff preview wait to sees right now. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen, and we'll revisit it if we're right or we're wrong. These are not picks of the day. These are wait to sees. We'll get to the picks later. The playoffs start with Houston against Detroit. What a storyline. Detroit has been, and Houston, the 2 best teams in the American League for months now. One of them will be gone in a matter of 48 to 72 hours. Houston is favored, but they are facing the AL Triple Crown winner in pitching in Scubo, the Cy Young Award winner. He will win. Framber Valdez is the ace of the Astros. The Astros offense, while you were sleeping, even without Alvarez, is far more dangerous than Detroit's. Houston, who does not feel any pressure because they already are the dynasty, even if they lose in the first round. They want to try to get back to the World Series, get back to the LCS for an unprecedented 8th straight time. I say that not thinking that the Yankees likely did it 8 straight times back when there were only 2 rounds in the playoffs. The complaints that people have had, I got tweeted at David P. Samson, what a joke that the Astros and Tigers have to play in the afternoon. The broadcasters choose the times, period. You can't have a West Coast team play an afternoon game. Can you imagine the Padres playing a 11:30 a.m. game? Not happening. How about the Padres playing a 2:30 game? Not happening. So Houston-Detroit is the least attractive series. Houston, shockingly, people love to hate them, but people are tired of watching them. MLB would have no problem with Houston not making it to the World Series like they didn't last year. They're pretty tired of Jim Crane and this round of Astros. They'd like to have the torch passed. But believe me, they're not all that interested in A.J. Hinch prevailing either. Good storyline with A.J. Hinch, though, going to Houston as the manager of the Tigers. We're taking Houston. Wait to see. The Mets get the champagne out of their eyes. They get on a plane. They land at General Mitchell Field. They get on the bus for 20 minutes, 43 North, right to the Pfister, though they may have stayed, going from Signature, they may have just stayed Lakeside, but I think they probably would take 43. Check into the Pfister, get into their rooms, keys waiting at the table, say goodbye to the ghosts, hello to the ghosts, make their way to Miller Park, which it's not Miller Park anymore. Sorry, Coca. And start their series right now. The Mets are underdogs in the series. Who here wants to go against the Mets? They've got Severino American Family Field. Dang it. Sorry, Milwaukee. The Brewers without Corbin Burns. He starts for Baltimore today. The Brewers without Christian Yelich. The Mets get to go with Severino tonight. And guess what? The Mets are going to win the series. Wait to see. Once you're done watching the Mets win 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee, you can watch Baltimore against Kansas City. You can watch Kansas City, who turned around for 106 losses. You can watch a Kansas City team that would be a dream for baseball, a dream for them to advance, but not to the LCS. That's a first. I think I just needed a gesundheit during a live show. Excuse me. Baltimore, Kansas City. David Rubenstein, first-year owner, experiencing the playoffs for the first time, thinking this will be easy. We'll do this every year. The 91 and 71 Orioles trying to advance to what would be a very awesome division series against the New York Yankees. They are favored significantly, and they will prevail. Kansas City will end this season having accomplished greatness, turning around a franchise as quickly as they did from 106 down to the playoffs to October baseball. They will be happy. Which leaves us with Padres in Atlanta. Wait to see. Goodbye, Atlanta. I have a mea culpa. You know I love corrections. I love being wrong because I love correcting it. I, again, was tweeting during the game. When Chris Sale was not starting game 2, I thought it was a brilliant move. Don't waste Chris Sale when the Mets are going to lay down. Even though the Braves had to win game 2 yesterday to make the playoffs, there was no doubt in my mind that not starting Chris Sale was the right move. Coke and I came up with that, discussed it, thought about it, worked it through. They announced back spasms, and I thought that they were lying. When Chris Sale didn't start Friday, I thought that that was ridiculous because I thought they could start him Friday. He could be out of the bullpen Monday if they needed him, and then he could be ready to start game 1 Tuesday in the playoffs. But they started Max Fried and said, hey, Max Fried likes to be on regular rest. He doesn't like his routine being changed. I've spoken to hundreds of pitchers. I've lived 18 years with pitchers. Oh, no, pitch me every 5 days, please. Give me a break. It turns out Chris Sale's really hurt. We'll find out for sure when the rosters are announced this morning. But it looks as though the Cy Young winner for this year will be Chris Sale. The NL Triple Crown winner. Amazing that we have 2 Triple Crown winners in Skubal and Chris Sale. It turns out that he may not even be on the roster, but he still could be on the Division Series roster if they beat the Padres. The Padres are going to prevail, which is going to set up a Padres-Dodgers second round. So we could be looking at Padres-Dodgers and Yankees-Orioles Division Series. Wait to see Houston, Mets, Baltimore, San Diego. I got to wait to see on my pennant winners. I am predicting right now. I have the Mariners over the Diamondbacks in the World Series. 0 for 2. Neither of them made the playoffs. My new World Series matchup is going to be Philadelphia against Houston. And I've got Philadelphia winning the World Series. JT Realmuto will be hoisting a trophy, as will Bryce Harper. It's playoff time, baby. What that also means is that there are approximately, here's some quick math. What do we have? 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 30 minus 12, 18. Thank you. Let's do that way more cleanly on this show. 4, 8, 69. While the playoffs begin today, there are 18 teams whose off-season has begun. It is interesting, the moves that have been made already, and we will get to it after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It is so important when you head into your off season. You have your timeline ready with your important dates. You know when you've got to take players off your roster. You know when you've got to add minor leaguers who are out of options, who have to be added to your roster. Not out of options. They just have to be added to the roster. They become minor league free agents. You know that you're identifying major league free agents. You're identifying split free agents, those who are come in on an invite where if they make the team, they make a couple million. If they don't, they have a minor league rate. You are putting together your spring training plan. You're putting together your budgets. Everything's happening. Before we get to two teams that made very interesting announcements yesterday, I want to get to a movie that I watched. And this is the movie that I told you about yesterday. I watched it in the middle of the night on Saturday night into Sunday morning when I couldn't sleep. It's a movie called Will and Harper. It's a movie starring Will Ferrell as Will Ferrell because it's a documentary about Will Ferrell and his best friend. His best friend was a writer for Saturday Night Live. That's how they met. His best friend's name was Andrew. They created iconic characters. They built this amazing relationship. And then one day, Will Ferrell opened an email, and it was his friend, Andrew, telling him that Andrew was now Harper, and he was a woman. And Harper is a trans woman. And they decided to drive across country and experience the country as a man and a woman, as friends, a man and a trans woman, and how it would work, both for them and how they would relate to other people. I am imploring you to watch this documentary on Netflix. When you look at the middle of the country and you look at some places where they went, where trans people are simply not accepted, where they are bullied, where you look at places where you would expect there to be intolerance and there's tolerance, when you get to be a fly on the wall of moments between Will Ferrell asking questions that we'd all ask if our best friend emailed us to say, by the way, I am now who I was never, except I've been always, and I've lied to you since the start of our friendship. What do you say? How do you react? Will Ferrell was able to ask the questions that we'd all want to ask of our best friend, was able to shed tears knowing that he wasn't there for his best friend in any way that he should have been or could have been because he just didn't know the pain. The next time you want to make fun of somebody, the next time you want to hate on somebody, the expression is you can't understand anyone until you've walked in their shoes. I'm still waiting for anyone to explain to me how you can hate someone for trying to live their truth or for the torturous way they have to live because they can't live their truth. Please watch Will and Harper immediately. It's that good. So 18 teams get together and they decide what they're going to do with their manager, their general manager. Two teams made decisions yesterday. One of you asked a specific question about one of the teams.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson, get in my Twitter or go to davidsamsonpodcast.com. Subscribe on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. David, hello. Can you believe the San Francisco Giants hired Buster Posey and mentioned the Selig rule at the press conference? I appreciate the question because I need to talk about it. Not exactly accurate, but yes, the San Francisco Giants fired Farhan Zaidi, their president of baseball operations, who has been an abject failure. 5 out of 6 years. Bad teams, no playoffs. They had that great year where they won the division, won 107 games. When are teams going to realize that hiring someone who is brilliant, analytic, but couldn't manage their way out of a corn maze off season. Buster Posey, 3-time world champion. Buster Posey, who we talked about as having got involved in the Matt Chapman signing by dealing with Scott Boras. Yippee-ki-yay. Boy, that really makes you able to run an operations department. Buster Posey named president of baseball operations. I am in shock. Here's why. To be the president of baseball operations is to run a business. There is no difference between Derek Jeter and Buster Posey, other than Buster Posey is likely way smarter than Derek Jeter. Other than Derek Jeter did not work nearly as hard as Buster Posey will work. But the skill set required to be the president of baseball operations, you've got to deal with people, HR. You've got to deal with accounts payable, accounts receivable. You've got to deal with budgets. You've got to deal with scouting, player development, analytics, the major league team. It is a huge job that is incredibly difficult. In many ways, it's harder than being the president of the team because the president of baseball operations is a direct report like the head of sales, the head of marketing, the CFO, the COO. There are direct reports that a president has. The president of baseball operations also has direct reports, but the technical things that are needed, understanding the rules of baseball, understanding roster management, the technicalities of roster management. That's just a tiny percentage of what it is to be president of baseball ops, which is another word for GM. When you hire a GM with limited experience, you've got to have an experienced AGM. The Giants have to have someone working with Buster who Buster trusts, who can help him with the operation of the business, understanding the deadlines of roster management, the mechanics of roster management. The risk in hiring a legend to run your team, I guess Dan Marino still is a legend in Miami, so it can be done, Coca. You can hire your legend, fire your legend, and everything can end up okay. But the decision by Greg Johnson, who's the chairman of the San Francisco Giants, was just very interesting to me because the way he said it is that he's excited. He announced Farhan's being fired and then said, I'm excited to share that Buster Posey will now take on a greater role. We're looking for someone who can define, direct, and lead this franchise's baseball philosophy, and we feel Buster's the perfect fit. He's got the demeanor, intelligence, and drive to do the job. Here's the problem, Greg. You're describing an outstanding special assistant to the president or to the owner. Defining, directing, and leading the baseball philosophy is merely part of what Buster Posey will have to do. And he's going to wake up in a month and say, OMG, this is MISERABLE. I don't need this. It is shocking to me that he's hired. In the release, buried. We are also fully committed to following the Selig rule. Well, we just hired a white guy without interviewing anybody, but I digress. The Selig rule is you have to consider minority candidates. We are fully committed to following the Selig rule and ensuring diversity in our hiring. For any of our open positions. Not exactly what Bud Selig had in mind, not what Rob Manfred had in mind, not what Mike Hill has in mind. Because does that mean he's automatically hiring a minority? Automatically. Has to. In order to somehow fulfill a rule that calls for the true consideration of many candidates. Greg Johnson didn't consider anybody else except Buster Posey. This ends badly definitionally. The St. Louis Cardinals had a terrible season. Just terrible. They're getting rid of Paul Goldschmidt. Goldschmidt and Arenado combined to win how many playoff games, Coca? I think 0. Bill DeWitt, who was part of the bidding for the Baltimore Orioles back in the early 90s when Peter Angelos bought the team, he stood up there. He sat down at a press conference and said, "We've got the plan. We've signed Chaim Bloom to a 5-year contract, but he doesn't get to start until after next season." You see, John Mozeliak has been the president of baseball operations, and he's gone after 25. They've pre-fired him. They're saying that they're letting him go, that it's mutual, and that he ran its course. The fan base wants him gone. The public pressure to have him gone. So Bill DeWitt thought, we'll appease the fans. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give a quote that'll say that effective immediately, Chaim Bloom will oversee a reset of our player development system. As part of his assessment this past season, he's developed a plan to improve our player development infrastructure and philosophy. Really? Maybe Chaim Bloom and Chris Getz got together and said, hey, I just got to the organization. I need a full year for a plan. I've been in the organization forever. I don't need a full year for the plan. Oh, wait a minute. I'm totally wrong. Chris Getz was in the organization, and he needs way more than a year to do it, according to Reinsdorf. Chaim Bloom was not in the organization, went to the Cardinals, and bing, bang, boom, he got himself a plan. You think that everyone is satisfied in St. Louis? You all good? You all happy that Bill DeWitt told you that John will stay for another season and then Chaim will take over, but he signed a new 5-year deal? It's total horse hockey. If you're ready to make a change, make it. Don't do a step transaction to replace your GM / president of baseball ops. What are you? Your loyalty to John is so great that you want to give him the one lame duck year to see if he can once again hoist a trophy? Give me a break. You got to have the conviction to do it now, especially when you're an octogenarian. What are you screwing around for? If you're Chaim Bloom and you've got kids, I don't know if he does. You got a family, don't know if he does. If you just want to be in one place for a long time and you want the security of knowing that you're going to get the title later, how does that work during meetings? You think Chaim Bloom and John Mozeliak, if they have a disagreement, John will say, I'm in charge. I want this player. Chaim like, I don't want that player. Let's take that player. You think that they don't run to the owner and then the owner is going to side with Bloom every single time? You've basically snipped John's power. So if you're going to snip it, you might as well snap it off. I feel terribly for the Cardinals. I really do. Nothing personal pick of the day. We had the Braves over the Mets in game 161. How'd that go? The Mets came back to win. We lost that one. We did have the Titans plus 2.5 at the Dolphins. I'd like to talk about that for a moment. Was that a good game in people's minds? Are they looking at Mike McDaniel and saying, hey, he's got this? Stephen Ross, the least successful owner that I can think of. It was an embarrassment. An absolute embarrassment. Titans plus 2.5. We got ourselves a winner. We are 132 and 137. We're still down over 20 units. We're going to try to sweep today. I was going to give you 4 picks, but I'm giving you 2. Let's start with the Baltimore Orioles, who are playing the Detroit Tigers. I am very unhappy with the line that Burns is 162. I have this completely off, Coca. Can you help me out here? Is Baltimore not playing Kansas City? I don't know why I have it written wrong, but maybe I don't know what I have. Do you want to just start that entire nothing personal pick over? I believe that Houston's playing the Tigers and the Orioles are playing the Royals. Corbin Burns, minus 162 over the Royals. Excuse me. Hi, my name's David Samson. Quick check. All right, I'm good. I'm tired today. Let's start that again. Thank you. 12, 24, 48, 69. Nothing personal pick of the day. We're going to take Corbin Burnes and the Orioles over the Kansas City Royals in game 1. And we are taking the San Diego Padres at minus 142 over the Atlanta Braves. Lines are subject to change. The Braves, forget the exhaustion, forget the fact that Chris Sale isn't pitching. Just take a look at the Padres team with Michael King pitching. Take a look at him and try to remember where they got him. Sometimes trades are okay to make. Orioles, Padres are the 2 picks of the day. I want to end the show today by going through some things that happened during this season. It is very important to Coca and to me that we follow through on what we say we're going to follow through on. Wait to sees. We had a bunch of wait to sees about this year's baseball season. The baseball season's over. Some were good, some were bad. Let's revisit them so you can go back to old episodes. If you are new to the show, thank you. November 28th of 2023. Way back then, I told you the Cardinals won't win a playoff round this year. Yes. On December 5th of 23, go back to that show. I said Mookie Betts will play over 7 games in right field. Remember when they moved him to shortstop? And I was like, yeah, he's going to play right field. He played plenty of right field. That was yes. Attention, Trevor Bauer fans. On January 5th, who's a Trevor Bauer fan? Give me a small break. Attention, Trevor Bauer people. January 5th of 2024, long time ago. I told you Trevor Bauer would not throw a pitch the entire season in Major League Baseball. Guess what? He didn't. That's a yes. 4 days later on the 9th, we had a great talk about the Yankees. I said that Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman will not be back if the Yankees don't make the postseason. Well, they made the postseason, so that's a non-applicable. NA. February 5th, the Dodgers will win under 116 games. Remember when all of you thought that the Dodgers were going to be the best team in the history of baseball? And that was 116 wins? I was like, no, they're not going to be. That's a yes. February 20th, spring training starts. Giancarlo Stanton's healthy. Wait to see. Stanton will play in over 120 games. God dang it. He only played in 114. That's a no. Then Mookie at shortstop on March 11th in spring training. I was saying to you, hey, he's not going to play 100 games at shortstop. This is not going to work. Well, he did play under 100 games at shortstop. That was a yes. I've got a bunch of over-unders that I announced on March 28th. I want to review them for you. They were all wait to sees. On March 18th, I said the Cardinals would go under 84.5. They did. March 28th, opening day. Yankees under 91.5. Nope. Miami under 78.5. Damn right. Dodgers under 103.5. Yeah. Philly over 89.5. I'm rolling. Yeah. Atlanta over 101.5. Negative. Texas over 88.5. What happened to you, Texas? I should have known there'd be post-World Series letdown. That was a no. I figured Arizona would go over 84.5. How could they not? They did. Still didn't make the playoffs. I thought the Oakland A's would stink. They did, but not enough. Under 57.5. Nope. And my Seattle Mariners. Boy, did we have that rotation nailed. We said they'd go over 87.5 wins. Nope. March 29th, we told you Patrick Corbin will start under 30 games, but we're going to bet against him every single time. Guess what? He started 32 games. I told you on April 18th, the Astros bullpen ERA would finish in the top half of the league. They did. On the 24th of April, I said the Dodgers won't win 100 games. They didn't. Way to go. I told you on September 24th, Skip Schumacher would be out. And he is no longer managing the Marlins. I told you on May 17th that Juan Soto would not sign a contract during the season, no matter what Hal said. Guess what? He didn't. I said Paul Skeens would have an ERA lower than 3. Nope. I said Skeens would be shut down. Nope. I said that he would be higher than 3, and he ended up being lower. On August 26th, I said that Jordan Montgomery will get under 22 and a half starts. Remember when they moved into the bullpen because they didn't want to pay him the bonus? Yes. He only started 21. And then I said on July 17th that Major League Baseball All-Stars will wear their regular jerseys again, and it was announced that they will, and so they will. Remember, for baseball, it's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.